Never say you have worked as a nurse until you have clocked in for a 12-hour shift that slowly crept into a 15-hour shift. Then you can officially say you are now a nurse. And do you want to survive this 12-hour shift without losing your mind? I got you. Hi guys, I'm Stephanie and I'm a nurse based in the US. In my channel, I talk about nursing, beauty, hygiene, and so many other nice things that I know you would love. So make sure to subscribe on the subscribe button, share, like, and drop a comment in the comment section where we chit chat, we share ideas, and we learn from each other. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my top tips on how to survive a 12-hour shift that might potentially roll into a 13 hours, 14 hours, and even a 15-hour shift without losing your mind. Let me tell you something, nursing students, new nurses, most of the times when we go to work, we are expecting that we are going to work a beautiful, easy 12-hour shift. But let me tell you something, no shift is different. You might be swiping in and clocking in, maybe hoping, praying, expecting that you're going to have easy patients where you only have to give them medications. You just have to attend to, giving them their maybe water, juice, snacks, and maybe attending to one or two things that the family wants to ask you. You get to respond to those questions and maybe just giving them their pain medicine. But let me tell you what, working as a step down unit nurse, sometimes it can get even very crazy. You clock into the shift and you get your patient assignment. Yes, you have 4 patients, you have 5 patients depending on the hospital. You see, oh, patient 1 is here for maybe a bowel obstruction, patient 2 is here for kidney disease, maybe on dialysis, patient 3 is here for CHF, you're thinking of your diuretics, patient 4 is here for maybe respiratory issues, they're here for shortness of breath, maybe COPD exacerbation. You know that you're just going to work on titrating of their oxygen maybe to their baseline as they are at home, and you're like, okay, it's going to be easy peasy. Okay, patient 1, I need to take care of maybe like blood pressure issues. Patient 2, I need to work on, maybe they'll have to go for dialysis, monitor their creatinine, monitor their blood pressures. Patient 3 here for COPD, CHF, you're going to be giving them diuretics, watching out for their input and output, watching for their weight changes, and watching for kind of like blood pressure issues back and forth, maybe a reduction in swelling as well. Patient 3 is here for respiratory issues. You want to make sure that, hey, if the patient is on like 6 liters, you're trending them down to 4 liters, 3 liters based on what their baseline at home is. But mind you that in as much as you've clocked in for that 12 shift, one of those patients can at any moment just swing to the other side. Maybe the patient who came for COPD exacerbation can be moved from like that initial 6 liters to maybe like 40 liters on high flow, and maybe before you know it, they're even going on to a BiPAP. Because guess what, I've had those kind of patients. What about the patient who went for dialysis? They can be coming back with blood pressure issues. You're giving them resuscitation fluids, but it's not helping the blood pressure, and then before you know it, you call it react, this patient has to go to the ICU. Or is it the patient who is here for CHF? You're taking all those fluids. Yes, the patient's weight is dropping, but again, we are now fighting with like blood pressure issues. Okay, CHF patients, you don't necessarily have to resuscitate them with fluids for their blood pressure. In some cases, you can give them like 250. In some cases, you can give them like 500 cc of bolus. But most of the times we try to stay away from giving them fluids, because you're working on taking out the fluids, and then giving them more fluids to resuscitate the blood pressure doesn't even make sense. So you're going to be fighting out with blood pressure that is dropping, and so these kind of patients can easily go to the ICU for like being started on pressors. Or are we talking about the first patient who is also here, who can also change and go to the other side? Let me tell you something, you have to come to work with the expectation that a 12-hour shift can easily move on to a 15-hour shift. I always come to the hospital with an open mind. One thing you have to always do when you come to the hospital is come with an open mind. In as much as those patients can be very easy, the patient with bowel obstruction, you never know, maybe that patient can just have a sudden blast of bloody poop, and before you know it, that patient's blood pressure can drop. Because I had a patient who also came for like bowel obstruction. No, the patient actually came for a bowel perforation, and then this patient was, for some reason, she just kept pooping. And during maybe the 3rd clean out that we were cleaning this patient, guess what, this patient had a massive bloody poop. and like 30 minutes while we were cleaning this patient, because the patient was also very, very obese. Whilst we were cleaning this patient, the patient's blood pressure dropped, and before you knew it, this patient had to go to the ICU, and within like 2 hours of reaching the ICU, this patient passed away. So let me tell you that when you're coming to the hospital, keep an open mind that yes, you're clocking in for a 12-hour shift, but before you know it can even turn out to like a 13-hour shift, 14-hour shift. I know so many people will be asking, like, why is it going to stretch into 13 hours? Why is it going to stretch into 14 hours? And even there, I say 15 hours. Guess what? When a patient's condition changes and becomes much more critical, you have to call that react, or you call the code blue. During that period where you're doing all of that, you are at that point focusing on that patient, and so every other thing for your other patient is on standby. Their medications, maybe you needed to do like clean the wounds, or you needed to empty a Foley bag, or you needed to do like something for the patient's pain medicine, or you needed to do titration of some drip, or give them an antibiotics. Everything gets pushed to the back. And so once that patient who is critical has been settled down, in the sense of maybe the patient had to be taken to the ICU, you move the patient to the ICU, you go, you give report to that patient, you come back, you do all those finishing touching on your documentation for that patient before you sign off of that patient. Now you then move on to your other patients. You're trying now to catch up on what you needed to have done whilst your critical patient was maybe during that react period or during the code bloom. And then worst case scenario, if your patient passes on, you have all those paperwork, you have to make all those calls, and you have to document, especially like what happened during the code blue. During this time blood pressure went up, blood pressure came down. During this time oxygens were like this. During this time, patient came back, patient was sucking, and then the patient went back into a code. All those little documentations can stretch into an extra hour. And need I say, maybe the patient passes on, you and your tech are responsible for cleaning that patient. Depending on the policy of the hospital, sometimes you are expected to take that patient to the morgue and drop them off there, or a family member is there. Worst case scenario, when the patient passes on, you have to give the family members time to grieve and have just a bonding time with their deceased loved one before you actually come to clean the patient. So there's a lot of things that can make your shift start from an expected 12 hours and stretch into 13, 14, and there I say 15. And again, when you take these patients to the morgue, you have to sign paperwork, you have to wait for security to come and walk you down. Again, during that time, depending on the location of the morgue in your hospital, it's going to chop off so much time that you should have been doing things for your other patients. And so these are the kind of little things that can chop into the time of an expected 12 hours stretching into 13, 14, and even 15. And one other thing that can make it even worse is if you're a new nurse and you don't even know where to document, you don't even know where to go drop off the body, you don't even know what to do, and you were not even aware of what to look out for in those kind of critical situations. I can tell you that it's going to drag it to a 13 or 14 hours. And so most especially to the new nurses, most especially to nursing students, I want you guys to listen up on how to manage your shift and make it very manageable and bearable as you move on in this career. The very first thing I want you all to remember at the back of your head is make sure that you're hydrating yourself. Lots of fluids, lots of coconut water, whatever you do that keeps you hydrated, make sure that you are consistently and you are always remembering to do it. Things like water, things like coconut water, fruits, especially like watermelon, maybe pineapple. These are things that can hydrate you, but stay on top of your hydrating game. You don't want to be so thirsty and then in the middle of that thirst, something happens to one of your patients and then you have to be running back and forth with during that cold period, or you have to be running to go get medication or some equipment for that patient. Make sure that you are keeping up with your hydration. I know that it can get very uncomfortable when you're hydrating yourself so much during your shift and then you have to keep going to the restroom, but I can tell you that when you hydrate yourself, it keeps you less stressful, it keeps you more focused, it keeps you from being uncomfortable, because when you're dehydrated you feel uncomfortable, when you're dehydrated you feel very stressed, when you're dehydrated you feel very anxious, so to speak. You feel very conscious of like so many things around your environment, and so that plays into distracting you in your documentation and attending to your patient's need, because you always be like, okay, what is it, you're just so nervous, you're just so itchy, you're just so agitated, you're very feisty, you're just very nitty-picky about little things. So always remember to hydrate yourself. Hydrate. The next thing I want you to always remember is that make sure that you are snacking. Let me tell you something, 12 hours can be a very long shift, and kudos to those people who come to work without food, because I don't know how they do it, but what I have done that has made me to survive for the past 4 to 5 years of my nursing career is that I always take food to work. And when you take food to work, it makes you very intentional on what you eat, what you snack on, and what you drink. So make sure that you are taking snacks. Within 12 hours, I can guarantee you that you're going to feel hungry, irrespective of whether you ate like a whole meal before coming to work, or irrespective of the fact that you ate maybe like a snack, and that's usually how you do your thing. When you come onto that 12-hour shift, you're going to be very hungry, and we all know that a hungry person is an angry man. There's no way around it. When you're hungry, you're very grumpy. When you're hungry, you tend to, grumble a lot. You tend to be speaking under your nostrils, under your breath. And who knows, you don't want your patient to pick up those kind of things and then seem like you're being rude, you're being unprofessional in your career towards them, especially in front of family, dare I say, because families, patient family members in the room are very, very observant. The things you do, the things you say, the way you treat their family, the way that you treat their loved ones, they pick up all those things. And I've had certain scenarios wherein I come and I give report and I'm doing my thing with my patient, and then the family is like, oh, the previous nurse came here, she was very grumpy, or she seemed very distracted, that was very unprofessional of them, So always make sure that you're bringing little snacks. I can tell you that sometimes you're going to bring your meal, but I will assure you that that meal is not going to carry you on. Whether you ate before coming to work and you still have your lunch, always make sure that you're carrying snacks. And when I say snacks, always make sure that you're bringing healthy snacks. You want to think of things like nuts, you want to think of things that are less greasy, less fatty, you want to think of things that are healthy to you, basically what you know are healthy. Maybe you want to bring like fruits, dried fruits, and all those healthy snacks. Just make sure that whilst you ate before coming to work, and maybe before and after your lunch, have snacks that are going to keep you not hungry, so that you can have an easy, happy shift for your own self, your patient, as well as the family, so that you all can have an enjoyable shift during that 12 hours. The next thing I want you to remember, or the next thing I want you to know that you are making sure to do so that you can survive a 12-hour shift, is make sure you take your breaks. I know that some people feel like they don't have to take their breaks because what if something happens to your patients? Let me tell you something. If something happens to your patient, guess what? Another nurse can take care of that. But if something happens to you, make sure you're always taking your break. It is very important. If not for your job, at least for your own health. I always say this: if you don't take your breaks for the sake of your body is going to help you to take a break. Make sure you're taking a break. 12 hours, 13 hours is a very long period of time for you to think that you can work without taking a break. You need a break mentally, you need a break physically, you need a break emotionally, you need a break spiritually, you need a break even from your job. You need that time where it is just you, yourself, and maybe your food, and maybe just taking a break out of the hectic shift that you've been going through. Maybe you came on the shift and the patient, there's one particular patient who keeps asking for pain medicine. You came on the shift, there's another patient that you have to keep emptying, maybe their Foley, or you have to keep emptying their ostomy bag because they keep pooping and they keep eating a lot, so they're always pooping. Or you have another patient that you have to do maybe a CBI, or you just have so many things that have been draining you and pulling you left and right. Let me tell you something, you need that break. I don't know what some nurses think that they are doing when they say they cannot take their break out of the unit. Okay, I understand if your patient is very, very critical and they need very close monitoring. This is what I always do. Before stepping out of the unit to go to the break room, I always make sure that, okay, at least the charge nurses are aware that I'm going for my break, and at least one of the nurses who has patients who are neighbors to my patient is aware. I tell them, okay, this patient is there now, the other ones are full code. Okay, these two will be the patients who are going to be asking for pain medicines, but I've given them their pain medicine, so I don't think they should be asking for any pain medicine. Okay, this one is on oxygen. The oxygen might tend to go up or low. They are currently on 40 liters. Okay, this patient, the blood pressure might be the issue. I just checked it right now. The provider is aware. You just want to give them those little information before you step out. That is how I always take my break. I believe in taking my breaks because I need that mental step away from my job. Always making sure that I take my break. I always make sure. I don't joke with my 30-minute break. Like, I don't joke. I know I'm not one person who always takes that 15-minute breaks or the 2 15-minute breaks and then 1 30-minute break. But you see that 30-minute break, I always make sure that I take it out of the unit. I need that time to myself. I need that time away from, patients calling for this and that. So always make sure that you're taking the break, because if you don't take that break, let me tell you something, you can easily crash. You can easily burn out. Imagine that you come for your first 12-hour shift on Monday, you come for the second one on Tuesday, you come for the third one on Wednesday. That 3 shifts back to back without you taking a break. You go home, maybe on the first day, you're going to be very grumpy towards your kids, towards your family, towards your loved ones, and that is not healthy for them. That is not a healthy relationship that you want to incorporate. Another thing, you're going to be very grumpy towards your co-workers. You want after taking your 30-minute break, you come very refreshed, you come very light, you come very rejuvenated, you come very energized to take care of your patient. Another thing is you become very grumpy towards the patient, towards the family member. You want to be very happy, you want to be very hopeful. You want to have an attitude, a charisma around you that gives the patient the joy, the happiness to be like, okay, you know what, things are getting better, it's going to get better. You don't want to become very grumpy, very low spirited, and that just drags on to the energy of the patient and makes them even feel much more sad. So you always want to remember to take your break. It is very, very important. I don't care whether you're in the ICU or mother baby unit, whatever unit you are, you need to take your breaks. You need to take your breaks. If you cannot take a 30-minute stretch, at least take a 15 minutes out of the unit, you come back, take care of your patient, and then take another second 15 minutes, because you need the break. You just need that break. The next thing I want to advise is wear comfortable clothing. I have talked about wearing compression socks, which helps, but to some people it doesn't help. To some people it's uncomfortable. You have to do what makes you comfortable. Wear scrubs that are comfortable. I don't understand how people come to work, and especially those who work on a critical unit where your patient can code at any time, and you're wearing scrubs that are very tight. Have you ever seen a nurse who is doing compression and they're wearing tight scrubs? Have you ever thought of what if it rips off? Have you ever thought of what if it pops off? I just don't understand why you're going to be working on a critical unit and you know that anything can happen at any time, and you're wearing some kind of scrubs that makes you feel like you're very conscious of yourself. Like, I don't get it. Make sure you're wearing comfortable scrubs. Another thing is, I am one person that I always wear scrub hats, and that is because when I have to do a CPR, I hate the fact that my hair is going to be dancing and throwing all over my face. So I always wear a cap just to keep my hair all in one place. And just do whatever makes you feel comfortable. Maybe you're wearing shoes that are very comfortable, shoes that are soft, shoes that would not make you to have so much pressure to the floor that can make your feet even hurt. Compression socks, again, I have said this. So many people say that compression socks are going to, yes, the idea behind compression socks is to help relieve varicose veins behind the feet, but again, they can be very tight for some people and very uncomfortable. So I'm stressing on do what makes you comfortable. Again, you want to wear your scrubs that makes you comfortable. You want to wear a scrub hat that is going to keep your hair all in one place, so that in the case of where you have to be running around and doing things for your patient, maybe doing a CPR, your hair is not in the way. Tell you what, I've actually seen nurses who are doing CPR and their hair is all over them, and they're like, oh, please, can someone hold my hair? Like, that is not making your shift a comfortable one. And there I say, there was one time that one of my patients coded, and one of the nurses who was helping me to give CPR on my patient had a stethoscope on their neck, and guess what, that stethoscope kept dancing and flying, and during that moment of compression, it actually fell off the neck on the patient. Now, this is me just saying that, keep your hair all in one place. If you need to tie it all in a bun or just hold it all to the back, then fine, but make sure that you are coming to work and you are very, very comfortable in your attire. The next thing I want to say is make sure that you're keeping a journal. You want to actually be writing like, okay, today this is what happened, tomorrow this is what happened. the next day this is what happens. Make sure that you're journaling your shifts as the day goes. One thing is that it's going to help you keep track of like the new things you're learning. Two, is going to keep track of how you're improving in your skills. The third thing is that it's going to give you an overall sense of like where you've moved from point A to point Z, for example. So that is going to give you a boost in your career. It's going to make you to feel like, okay, from the beginning of shift one or before shift one, I was actually at this point, I felt timid, I felt like I could not talk to patients, I could not talk to family, I could not talk to doctors. And so, but at shift 3, I can actually talk to the doctor. I can do consent with patient, explain to patients what they are actually doing, explain procedures to patients. Even though in some hospitals that is the job of whoever is doing that procedure. Maybe if the patient is going for an EGD, it's up to the GI doctor to explain and get consent in some hospitals, but in some hospitals it's up to the nurses to get the consent. So do what is right or whatever the policy says in your hospital. So just journaling is going to give you an overall sense of like, okay, how I'm getting better in my nursing career and overall how I am doing. Another thing with journaling is that so many people tend to use journaling as a medium of venting out. Maybe that is the place where maybe one nurse got to your nerves. You want to write it down like, oh, this nurse was, she was very rude to me, she was very mean to me. You want to write it down because guess what, journaling can be very therapeutic for some people because that is a medium through where they vent out. You don't want to keep some negative energy within you because at some point you're going to crash. At some point it's going to just come all up on you, and it's not going to be a very happy feeling. It's going to sometimes even cost you your health, or just make you to feel very moody and kind of affect most of the people around you. So journaling is very, very important. Maybe you can use it as a medium of seeing your growth in your career, or maybe as a medium of venting. And while we are on the topic of being a confident nurse, I have an ebook on the confident nurse, and I have various ebooks that I can vouch are very, very going to be good for new nurses. So the link is going to be in the comment section below, so click on the link and get yours for all new nurses. I guarantee you it's going to be very, very helpful for you. The last one, which is going to be a bonus, is this: make sure you're not taking toxic energy home. You don't want to take whatever happens in the hospital to your homes. Take for example, maybe those elderly nurses who are actually eating their young. Maybe somebody took your wild, like the computer that you're going to be documenting in, and for some reason they are like, oh, I'm senior to you and so I deserve to get this before you. Or maybe someone comes and if your hospital, you guys use phones to scan medication, someone comes and takes the phone and say, oh, I deserve to get this because of seniority sake. And there are going to be some little things that might happen during your shift. I want to advise you, new nurses, nursing students, always make sure that you're practicing to leave everything that happens in the hospital. When you get home, please remember that this is your family, these are your loved ones. They don't deserve the negative energy that you were surrounded at during your 12-hour shift at the hospital into your home. Make sure that you're leaving every drama, every scenario, everything that just happened at work that kind of drew on your energy. Just leave it at work, and when you come home, please share the love with your loved ones and keep it positive once at home. So keep every negative energy in the hospital, and once you're at home, please be very nice and loving to your loved ones. In the comment section, please drop your own survivor tips in the comment section, because I am always on the hunt for more survivor tips for my 12-hour shift, because look, it is really crazy. Some of these patients can really drive you crazy. Some of these health diagnoses for your patients can really drive you crazy, and so it can be very, very tedious on your body. So if you have any survivor tips that I have not mentioned, please drop it in the comment section, because I really want more that I can incorporate during my 12 hours shift. Thank you all for staying right up to the end. I hope that you've learned a lot and you've scribbled down so much from this video. And if that is something that you love, those are contents that you love, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel by hitting the subscribe button. And from me to you, I'll see you all in my next one. Bye guys, and stay safe.